Welcome, everyone, and happy Thursday. Dangerous Hurricane Erin now finally beginning to turn away from the U.S. There'll still be impacts on the East Coast into the day tomorrow. Those of you in Bermuda and eventually Atlantic Canada will also be dealing with the effects of Erin. And there could be another one coming up for the Caribbean and Bermuda as we head into the weekend and early next week. I appreciate you joining me here. If you've not yet subscribed, I encourage you to do so and like the video and share with your friends as well. We're going to get right to it here. I'm going to share my screen here, starting with the Zoom Earth satellite view of the Atlantic Ocean. This is Category 2 Hurricane Erin off the eastern seaboard. We do have three areas of interest, in particular, two that we need to watch. This area here is now approaching the same areas that got hit by the outer bands of Hurricane Erin over the weekend. We'll be moving towards the islands here tomorrow, then beginning to make a turn up towards Bermuda. The area following it is an area being investigated as well for tropical development. And then we have a non-tropical low, which has a slim chance of developing into a tropical system. There's more waves to come afterwards. And we're going to talk about all of that here in today's video. First, we have Hurricane Erin now moving northeast at 20 miles per hour. It's picked up some speed now as it moves around a large upper level ridge to its east. It's about 370 miles east-northeast of Hatteras, 375 miles northwest of Bermuda, and winds remain at 100 miles per hour. The changes this evening is that we have seen a tropical storm watch upgraded to a tropical storm warning for the island of Bermuda, and we're starting to see tropical storm warnings getting cleared south of Duck, North Carolina. Still, though, impacting the upper Outer Banks and all the way up the eastern shore of Virginia to Chincoteague, and we do still have a storm surge warning for the Outer Banks, Cape Lookout to Duck. Here's a look at the map showing the percentages of possible formation this evening. Erin obviously has already formed. That will be accelerating and eventually weakening as it hits cooler water south of Newfoundland here on Sunday. But the next one to watch, the one that will likely become Fernand, is going to take a track very similar to Erin, at least over the short term, then likely turning north and may impact Bermuda here early next week. There is a pocket of warmer water, as you can see here on the map, south of Bermuda that has not been touched by Erin. That gives us a possibility of strengthening further, maybe even into a hurricane. And that warm water is providing a little bit of fuel for this non-tropical low here over the central Atlantic as that drifts eastward. We have another wave to keep an eye on that hasn't officially become a depression, and it may not, due to the fact that it's going to be hitting some wind shear over the next couple of days. Here's a look at massive Hurricane Erin, about the size of Hurricane Sandy, if you'll remember back in October of 2012, fortunately moving the other way, away from the U.S. coast. But this is actually in the top 10% of all storms in this portion of the world in history. So there have only been less than 10% of all hurricanes that have gotten bigger than this system. And a lot of that's due to the fact that there's a large anticyclone aloft, which has allowed the system to grow on all quadrants here. You can see how quickly the clouds are spreading here, and the wind field is expanding as well in all directions. Fortunately, it's moving away from the East Coast. We still have some gusty winds at the coast and coastal flooding, but it looks like the worst is beginning to wind down. Those of you a little bit farther north here in coastal New England, Long Island, New Jersey, are actually going to get your strongest winds here tonight as the storm moves in this direction and continues to grow in size. We'll start to feel the impact on coastal Nova Scotia here later on tomorrow and into early Saturday, and then eventually Newfoundland as well. This is Bermuda right here, and Bermuda will be getting increasing wind here as the night wears on. And in particular, tomorrow, Friday morning, we will have potential tropical storm force winds hitting the island of Bermuda. And you may not be done in Bermuda. You'll see on the edge of the map here, we have another developing wave, which is expected to move up generally in this direction here late this weekend and early next week. So it's very possible that Bermuda could have a 1-2 punch here over the next 5 days. Here's a closer look at Erin, and despite the warm water, you'll see that it has had to battle a little bit of wind shear and some dry air on the western side here. That has kept it from getting back to Category 3, and the odds of that happening now are pretty much zero, but it's still a very powerful system with winds of 100 miles per hour. It is now picking up speed as it moves generally in this direction away from the United States, but impacting Bermuda here on the outer edge with some squally conditions here through the night tonight and certainly during the day tomorrow. Here's the visible with the infrared light on top of it as well, so you can get an idea of how big the storm is and where it's producing rain. And fortunately, the worst should be coming to an end over the mid-Atlantic coast here tonight. And we have another front getting ready to move in. So it'll actually cool down here and the winds will pick back up. And we could actually see some low pressure trying to form off the Carolina coast early next week. But that will also be heading behind Erin out to sea. Here's a water vapor image, and it shows that dry air that is coming down from the upper level of the north and west. This is upper level dry air. It's coming in from the northwest. That's what I meant to say. But you can see that is pushing the system away here, and it will also bring in some cooler, drier air before the end of the week across this region. So August ending up a little on the cool side here, especially in the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic, where we've been below average for several days. The humidity has been a little bit high, but it is going to start to come down here as well. Earlier, we had aircraft go into the storm showing that motion to the northeast, the pressure rising up to 952 millibars. That pressure should gradually continue to rise. I don't think we have another plane going into the system. We do have something investigating the surrounding areas just to keep an eye on what's going on with the atmosphere. But at this point, we should not have any additional flights going in to measure what's going on with Erin. We do have some upcoming flights, though. Taking a look here at our invest area that's to the east of the islands, that is going to leave here in about 19 hours. So we will find out around this time tomorrow, maybe earlier on in the afternoon, whether or not we have another tropical storm, unless they upgrade it before then. But at that point, we're going to at least have some eyeballs on it, and we're going to see what's going on. We are also going to have a flight that goes in after that in the morning. They're calling it cyclone. I guess they're expecting it to be a tropical storm. That flight will be early in the day on Saturday, getting into the system around 7 to 8 o'clock Eastern time. So set your clocks. We are going to get more information. Real quick, I'm going to show you the path of Erin as we get into the end of the week and weekend. You see the wind field has continued to expand, getting closer to Bermuda here with tropical storm force winds. We'll probably get those later tonight and early tomorrow. The path is very well defined here. You can see how the cone does gradually spread out, though, over time. And it may put the remains close to Iceland here towards the middle of next week, but you'll want to watch in Ireland and the UK as well. Here's a look at Bermuda's satellite and radar. You can see an outer squall getting ready to move on to the island here from the west. It's not particularly windy with this, but you will see areas where we could have a little bit of lightning. As you can see here, the GLM indicates some lightning strikes getting close to the western side of the island here during the evening hours. Here are our models, and again, I'm not going to spend much time on it, but gradual decline in maximum winds expected here during the night tonight and early in the day tomorrow. Yes, my lights flickered. We've had generator on here in my neighborhood, no power since earlier this afternoon. But you can see over time here, this system is going to lose some power. It's not going to lose size and will be a powerful extratropical cyclone here by the time we get to Saturday morning. As it gets into the cooler water. And you can see that here, the triangles that the ship's model shows indicates it's losing tropical characteristics. Doesn't mean it's going to be a weaker system. It may actually grow, but it is not going to have a warm core. It's losing its moisture source here as well. You can see the relative humidity in the surrounding atmosphere is going to drop below 50%. Water temperatures come down and wind shear goes up substantially. But that doesn't mean this isn't going to be something that won't cause issues over the open waters of the North Atlantic. It's remarkable to say, though, that a system like this, as big as it is, managed to avoid land, although we have had tropical storm warnings in several spots here from this system. Here's a look at the HWRF model showing you how the field is going to expand a little bit more, but then as it gets poleward here east of Newfoundland, Saturday night, you're going to see most of the strong winds will be on the southwest side of it. So as this system heads up towards Iceland, the worst should stay over the open waters of the Atlantic. At least that's what the model shows for now. But it's going to get to a point where it stalls and kind of does a loop here early next week. A few of you are probably watching here from Europe, so just keep an eye on it. But I don't think this is going to be stronger than some of the storms we get here in the wintertime. Nevertheless, could cause some issues just because of the size of it. Speaking of the size and the wind field here, we see right now that winds along the coast are still gusting around 40 miles per hour. We're starting to see those numbers come up a little bit on the Jersey Shore, 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts. And the area to watch here tonight will be eastern Long Island, coastal Rhode Island, and coastal Massachusetts, including the islands here. We will see, as the winds expand on the north side, some gradually increased wind speeds here during the late evening hours and into the overnight hours as well. And those winds will be out of the north to northeast. So Buzzards Bay and Cape Cod Bay here are going to push that wind back on shore, which is common during nor'easters. You're going to see that situation here again. The good news, though, is for the mid-Atlantic coast from Jersey on south, by the time we wake up tomorrow morning, we are going to see significantly lighter wind. And it actually should be a fairly comfortable day tomorrow for most of the area. Winds will take until later in the afternoon to gradually subside across coastal portions of Massachusetts. Speaking of Massachusetts and Maine and the rest of New England here, you're going to see Maine avoids the worst of the wind. We will see some stronger winds funneling into the Bay of Fundy, some stronger winds on the southwest side of Nova Scotia here in the morning tomorrow. And then gradually those are going to come down here tomorrow night. So this is going to be a pretty quick moving system that deals us just a quick hit, and then it heads out. Looking at the rest of Atlantic Canada, you will see winds are going to start to pick up across the south coast. Let me go back a model run here because we're not fully in on the 18Z. But you'll see winds will start picking up here to 40 to 50 kilometers per hour on the southwest side of the island later tomorrow morning. And then those winds probably get to their strongest during the midday and afternoon hours, places like Halifax and Sable Island. In Newfoundland, we'll start to see winds picking up late tomorrow evening. Our strongest winds will probably be overnight and early Saturday morning. Right now, it looks like we're fortunate to avoid winds that are going to be higher than 60 kilometers per hour, which is about 35 to 45 miles per hour. So we may get brushed with tropical storm force wind gusts, but I do think the strongest winds will find a way to stay to the south of the island. And then looking at Bermuda, you're going to see winds picking up here this evening with gusts of 40 to maybe 50 miles per hour, and perhaps even stronger here after the sun goes down around 9, 10, 11 o'clock. We could see gusts on the island of 50 to 60 miles per hour, hence the tropical storm force wind, tropical storm warning that's in effect. Those winds are going to stay gusty throughout the night tonight. There's still going to be a little bit breezy in the morning tomorrow, but we should see some gradual relaxation of the winds when we get to the second half of the day tomorrow. The European indicates the next system will be in play here later Monday into Monday night. Where it eventually goes, still to be determined. But Monday night and Tuesday, something we may want to be watching for potentially more tropical storm conditions on the island of Bermuda here. If I pull up the GFS model, and I think we got the 12Z here, you're going to see that the GFS indicates a stronger system could be impacting the island here Monday afternoon and Monday night with some hurricane potential. Again, it's one model, and if that trend continues, we'll obviously be a lot more concerned, and you're going to hear about it from me, but a big difference between the European and the GFS at this point. Just know that we're not done in Bermuda. We've got more impact coming here during the early portion of next week. And speaking of that system, here's where the model indicates it's likely going to be here by tomorrow morning. You'll see turning northwest and pulling away from the Leeward Islands by Saturday morning. This is Erin up here. This is the following system. So this would be potentially Fernand, F. I was trying to draw on the map here. F potentially for Fernand. Right now it's 90L. The Invest that got 99 before it down in here looks a lot less likely to develop into anything. Here's the next wave coming off. We'll keep an eye on it, but right now the odds are pretty slim of any development. And we may see low pressure forming off the southeast coast here at some point this weekend, but nothing that's in a hurry to develop. The European is ignoring the tiny little bit of low pressure that's here and goes this direction. It thinks there's a less than 10% chance it could even become a tropical depression. But the Hurricane Center has gotten excited about it for whatever reason. So maybe it's that cute little swirl it's got. All right, as we flash forward later on into the weekend, low pressure forming off the southeast coast at this point, probably weak. Erin heads out to sea. This is potential Fernand here, having eyes on Bermuda or surrounding Bermuda. Here's our next disturbance, which right now has a low chance of becoming anything significant. And you'll see the odds actually continue to drop as that system moves across the islands here later Monday into Monday night, entering the Caribbean by Tuesday morning. What's going on with Fernand? It will start to get into some cooler water and should start to weaken. Here's Erin, still going to be a powerful non-tropical system at this point, post-tropical. And then whatever tries to form off the coast of the southeast here is probably a dud by the time we get to Monday afternoon and Monday night. So probably not going to turn up into an area of investigation, despite the fact that the European shows there's a probability of a depression. Notice, though, that threshold is 15 knots. That's awfully weak. Then next week, I think once Fernand goes away, things are relatively quiet with no real new development expected. But we do have to keep an eye on this disturbance down here as it goes across the Caribbean. It may be something that late next week or next weekend, if it's still over water, has a possibility to maybe gain some steam. All right. We're going to take a look at that system in particular. That's 90L. But first, we're going to talk about 99L, which is getting its act together here today with a lot more thunderstorm convection. That generally heads in this direction with a turn to the right, so no threat to the U.S. This one stays low, so it will bring some impact weather into the Windward Islands here by early Monday. And then this next disturbance moving offshore looks like it's going to struggle to develop. And at this point, not something I'm super concerned with. But we do need to keep an eye on it like we do with everything else. You can see on the water vapor, we do have an upper level low in between Erin and future Fernand. It's produced a little bit of wind shear here, keeping our system tilted from southwest to northeast. As that pulls away, the wind shear is expected to weaken. There's going to be a stronger area of wind shear here that cuts through the central Atlantic, and that is going to continue to cause some issues with this thing trying to develop. And things should stay pretty hostile with this massive wave coming off here. So I don't think it's going to develop. But, you know, until it comes off of Africa and we see it in the raw, we're not going to know for sure. The one thing to keep in mind here with 90L, which will be future Fernand, is that it's got a much shorter runway than what we saw with Erin last week. Erin was a bona fide tropical storm moving through the Cabo Verdes. This one probably does not become a tropical storm until it's close to or even past the northern Leeward Islands. So it's got a ways to go. It can strengthen quickly once it gets its act together, probably on Sunday or Monday. But at that point, it's probably not really a threat to any major land masses other than Bermuda. So we'll keep an eye on it. But you can see here lots of thunderstorm activity, some dry air on the south side, some southwesterly wind shear hitting it. But we are seeing some areas of rain moving through Barbados and the northern Windward Islands and the southern and central Leeward Islands as well. And you can see on the visible satellite before it got dark, there's a broad circulation, but not enough of a closed off low to call this a tropical storm. I wouldn't even say depression at this point. It's either a wave or a tropical storm because it is certainly getting those stronger winds and that momentum together. Here's the radar out of Barbados and now the Leeward Islands, and you can see bands of showers getting ready to move in here. So we'll get kind of windy here over the night tonight and into the morning tomorrow. I'll have an update on this tomorrow as well, as the water temperatures are going to be warmer in the path of the system as it comes up into here. This is the cool wake left behind by Erin, but once it gets past 23 north, it will go into some warmer water with water temperatures that are going to be around 84, 85, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So believe it or not, the waters are actually warmer up in here. They were pretty much untouched by Erin because Erin was a relatively small storm in here. It didn't get bigger till it got close to the Bahamas. And so there's still going to be some storm fuel in place. This is the microwave satellite image from earlier this afternoon showing that we do have intense weather on the eastern and southeastern side of the storm. I wish we could get more of a scan over here, but right now you can see it's just not organized enough to be classified a tropical storm. Because models are now running on it, we do have an estimate of where the track will be. Bermuda, by the way, is right here where 3 particular models are turning it right over the island here on Monday. We do have a few models going east and a couple going to the west, but Bermuda certainly is in the path. Down the road, we'll have to watch it in Newfoundland and maybe Nova Scotia as well. But at this point, not a threat to the U.S. UK Met can be ignored. It is not a reliable model for a system such as this. Here's the GFS ensemble. Again, Bermuda is just to the east of the trend line here. The black line is an average of all of the models. You can see right here that if this is correct, Bermuda is likely going to be near or just to the east of the path, which means it's going to get some stronger wind. The same can be said potentially about Newfoundland over time. That is, of course, assuming this thing strengthens. Here's the Canadian model, more the same. Here's the ship's forecast right over Bermuda as a Category 1, and maybe it has a chance to become a Category 2 as well, but it's going to be a lot farther offshore the East Coast. The wind shear is going to be a little bit high here for a couple of days, but should come down a little bit. It does stay under 20 knots until the system is pulling away from Bermuda and heading up towards Atlantic Canada. So wind shear is not going to be a huge deal. Water temperatures are certainly warm enough to support it. The humidity is fairly good. The heat content comes down slowly. So this definitely has some hurricane potential to it. You can see our Google DeepMind Weather Lab not really strengthening the system yet, but you can see the ensembles are all pulling the system away. And the European ensembles are actually a little farther to the right from the GFS ones I showed you. In fact, about 80% of them go by to the east of Bermuda, which would be the best case scenario here. But you can see there's potential for Category 1, Category 2, and even one model showing a Category 3 storm sometime here Monday morning. You will see St. John's, the Avalon Peninsula, is in fact in the window here. Nova Scotia is not quite in the window. About a quarter of the models go over Newfoundland. The other 3/4 are going to go east of Newfoundland here. Here's the intensity forecast. Pretty good agreement. This system is going to take off and intensify later in the weekend and could be a hurricane by Monday morning or Monday afternoon as it's getting closer to Bermuda. May even get all the way up to Category 2 or a strong Category 1. We'll have to wait and see on that. And then we're going to talk finally about 99L, which is not looking quite as organized as it was yesterday. It's fighting some wind shear. It's losing latitude, and it's not in the best spot to develop, but there's still a chance. There's a medium chance this could become a tropical depression or a brief tropical storm. And that could happen at any point here in the next couple of days. There's some warmer water waiting for it, but there's also going to be some higher wind shear waiting for it. Assuming this system gets itself together, it's likely heading west into the Caribbean in 96 hours, impacting Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, St. Vincent, Grenadines, and St. Lucia as well, maybe Dominica. But at that point, I don't think it's going to be anything stronger than a tropical depression. At least that's not my inkling at this point. GFS also has fairly weak and mainly staying south. I'm not trusting some of these outliers at this point. The Canadian model is trying to pick up on what's going on with possible Fernand here. So again, not very reliable. This is likely going to be heading west across the Caribbean. As you can see here over time, the general feeling is that this continues moving across St. Lucia Monday afternoon, and then probably not surviving or struggling when it gets to the South Central Caribbean, which is not uncommon for this time of the year. When it gets over here towards Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Honduras, and that's going to be almost a week from today, there is a little bit of support down the road that if it sits and maybe stalls or loses its steering, that it may stay over water long enough to try to form into something. And if that's the case, then Mexico and maybe the Gulf need to be watching more carefully. But right now, that seems to be the outlier to the possibility of solutions, which is weak and probably falling apart here as we get into next week. Here's a look at the halves model from earlier, showing you the system never truly gets much of a local center going. It stays very weak. It continues west here, kind of bounces around on the models, but eventually lands itself near Barbados and St. Lucia here and Dominica here sometime around lunchtime on Monday. Again, it's very weak and probably doesn't get a closed off circulation at that point. And then Tuesday, it's going to have a rough road ahead as it moves quickly west across the Caribbean. I'll show you the European model from earlier. You can see here's Erin, here's future Fernand, here's the next one. Gabrielle would be the next name. Notice how we're not really stressing about what's going on here in the Central Atlantic, and we're not super stressed either about what may form over the Carolinas because it's heading out. But over time, you see this system just never really closes itself off. It fights wind shear. It moves quickly west. There's a front that's going to come down all the way into the Gulf states here later next week. Now, if that front hangs out for a while, it may try to pick this system up, but that could be an outlier. The GFS picks it up a lot more than the European tries to. At that point, we're talking Labor Day, so there's a lot of uncertainty. What we are looking at next week, though, is a somewhat quieter pattern coming off of Africa as the vertical motion will become more convergent, meaning storms are not going to be able to grow and survive very well. There may be a ramp up coming after Labor Day, but the next week is going to look a lot quieter, I think, coming off of Africa. There'll still be some waves, but we're not going to see any kind of major development. Let me wrap this up here real quick, showing you the European ensembles with our next system here. You can see it stays weak. There's very little support for something coming up. There's a little bit of support east of North Carolina here early next week for some form of a low pressure system. It's probably staying pretty weak, but maybe we get another Dexter type system for a day or two. But that's really about it. If you look in the Caribbean, you see there's very little support for this thing to hang on a whole lot longer, but we do have a couple of outlier solutions that do have low pressure finding its way into the Southern Gulf or near the Bahamas. But again, that would be the exception to what the ensembles are showing. Here's the GFS. Again, here is likely Fernand coming up towards Bermuda here early next week. You can see it doesn't even let our next system breathe much longer than a couple more days. However, there will still be some moisture in play here. It'll be making its way towards Central America or the Western Caribbean by the Saturday after next, so the 30th. And there's a little bit of hint at maybe some development down in here. Maybe it's Mexico. Maybe it's the Southeastern Gulf. Really far off at this point to try to get specific with how that's going to play out. So we're going to wrap it up here. I got to get running, but I appreciate everybody's time today. I do want to end this with a special word, and that is the word of God. I give God all the glory for everything I do in my life. I've been doing that since I'm 30 as a Christian. And Jesus tells his disciples in the book of Gospel of Matthew to go, therefore, and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. And I'll stop here, but this is what's called the commission for those that have chosen to follow Jesus and become a Christian. And as exciting as my life has gotten since I've become a Christian, it's given me more hope than ever. It's given me a platform to stand on. It's given me a purpose and a reason to not have to try to do it all myself and to die to myself and let God control my future and everyone else's future. But it also tells me right here that I can't just withhold that from other folks. I get on YouTube almost every day and I share things that are factual from a very scientific and technical standpoint. But there are things that we just can't prove that are facts that we can choose to believe in, and that is the faith in the unseen. However, because Jesus was risen from the dead so that we could live eternally if we choose to follow him, that is the great news that I've been commissioned to share with others. If you're struggling in your faith, that is perfectly fine. We are all supposed to struggle in life. Where the struggle ends is eternity, but you have to make that choice to get to eternity. And I hope that you've made that choice. So I look forward to catching up with you all again here tomorrow afternoon. Thank you for joining me here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much.